introduction, and we'll see if people continue to join us. But like I said, many thanks for joining us for our lunchtime session on the Bow Street Interchange, Constructing Excellence Wales Exemplar programme. So I'd like to welcome everyone, and like I said, thank you for joining us. My name's Kat Griffith-Williams. I'm the CEO of Constructing Excellence in Wales. I'm a chair of the meeting today. We'll be recording the meeting, and also we're delighted to get our Exemplar programme back up and running, and we're doing a series of these projects with Transport for Wales, and we'll also be writing up about the programme following the Exemplar programme. So what I wanted to do is let's look at why we're actually discussing the Bow Street Interchange as an exemplar. Well, an exemplar is defined as something worthy of being imitated or copied, and this is precisely why what we seek to achieve with this programme. The exemplars are intended to offer good practical examples of how to achieve best value sustainable construction solutions. So the exemplar process combines the core principles of rethinking construction and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So the process identifies what actions are actually taking place at key project stages that have led to successful outcomes, so that this learning can be adapted on other projects. So at each stage, we use industry standard matrix to back up and support the description of what has been done, and all aspects of sustainability and construction best practice are taken into consideration, including the economic, social and environmental factors, so that a good all-round project is delivered that does not sacrifice one aspect for the sake of the other. So actually, why is the Constructing Excellence Wales Exemplar programme so important to the industry, and actually why should you be hearing about it today? Well, there are a number of factors that I just wanted to point out. The exemplar concept embraces the key drivers for the construction industry. Namely, it shows us of the need to understand where improvements can be made from the earliest phases of the project, right through to post-occupancy. It encourages design and project teams to work collaboratively to deliver whole life sustainability aspirations. It helps us monitor ongoing practice, and it provides feedback to the wider industry to take forward key learning points from successful projects and advice that can yield future successes. But it's not just an award for glitzy buildings and projects. It seeks to reward normal, repeatable schemes that have been done well. So the Constructing Excellence Wales Exemplar programme rewards projects that are shown to truly represent all aspects of sustainability in a cost-effective manner, and only projects demonstrated that they meet a range of industry benchmarks in all of these key areas are considered for exemplary status. And this is precisely why we're going to be here learning about Bow Street Interchange today. So I'd like to introduce you to the people that we're going to be hearing from. That's Lowry Joyce, who's the Stakeholder Manager for Transport of Wales. We have Mark Neath, the Programme Manager for Transport of Wales, and James Griffiths, the Programme Management Assistant for Transport of Wales. And following the presentation, we'll really encourage anyone to ask any questions to the panel about the programme, about the project, and we'll open the floor then for further discussion. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Mark Neath from Transport of Wales.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Neath. I'm the Programme Manager for TFW, responsible for the Bow Street Interchange. And I'll take you through a presentation we've put together. So Bow Street Transport Interchange. So Bow Street is situated about 5 miles from Aberystwyth on the Cambrian line. So the presentation will cover the background, the project aims, the project timeline, a site overview, some challenges we've experienced, design issues, Japanese knotweed and stakeholder engagement, and then we'll go into the operation and handover elements as well. So the project background, the initial consultation for the development in Bow Street was conducted in 2010, where there was a strong business case and public support for the project to proceed. A lack of parking provision at Aberystwyth indicated that a park and ride facility in Bow Street would be supported, and the area for station was initially used for storing caravans and was later cleared for track works by Network Rail in 2018. The remainder of the site was agricultural land owned by Aberystwyth University. So the main project aims were to develop a new railway station with strategic park and ride and multimodal interchange facility on the Cambrian line between Borth and Aberystwyth railway stations. It'll feature a car park, bus interchange, active travel route connectivity and cycle storage. The station will increase accessibility to the rail network, improve transport integration, and provide an alternative to the car for journeys. Additionally, it will support the development of local businesses and enterprises, centres of excellence, and research facilities. A wide range of users, anyone wishing to use public transport to access employment, education, training and health and other services. It'll benefit those visiting, so for tourism, and also business using public transport for business travel to other areas of Wales and beyond. It's funded by the Welsh Government and Department of Transport. The new station delivered by Transport for Wales in partnership with Ceredigion Council. Network Rail has recently completed the track works, or a long time ago now, to prepare for the main phase of construction. And this part, I'll hand over to James now, where he'll tell you some of the assets that have gone into the station and the platform.
Hello everybody, my name's James. I'm the project management assistant. I've been on the project for about a year and a half. And as Mark said, we're going to be going through some of the assets today. We'll go into it in more detail later, but the station essentially is split up into the platform and the car park. So we'll go through the platform first. Of course, we have the 100-metre length platform, and on either side then there's 2 emergency egress routes, step 3 as well, so ramps. And then also on the main access route, there's a step 3 access route for people with reduced mobility. And then on the platform itself, you have a customer information screen on the platform and a PA system with speakers with full coverage. You've then also got 3 customer help points positioned equally throughout the platform, 33 metres apart. And then 1 platform shelter with seating available and space for, again, people with reduced mobility. We also have then a reduced mobility access route from the car park to the station, which then ties into that, the step 3 access to the platform, as well as 12 CCTV cameras located, giving full coverage to the platform. Bit of a tedious one, but we did go and count all the signs on the platform, and there's 61 signs throughout the premises, including directional, safety and general information on trains and times, etc. And then also free Wi-Fi with signal across the full platform. And then surrounding the station and the platform itself, there's fencing, including palisade, feather edge and highway boundary fencing to ensure the public safety. And then if we move on to the car park assets, obviously the car park is a 75 space car park, which includes 4 disabled bays, 4 motorcycle bays, 3 EV charging points, 4 car drop-off bays, a bus lay-by and a bus shelter. And then we also have 2 cycle stands on the side. So 1 is sheltered, and then 1 is just a secure cycle stand. Again, as mentioned before, full security coverage and lighting columns. And again, another tedious one we did, 8,000 meters squared tarmac was used to cover the full car park. We also have a ticket vending machine and a defibrillator located on the car park, and then attenuation tanks in the bottom left-hand corner to collect water, drainage, etc. And then also 1 diesel oil interceptor to separate the contaminants, ensuring that they're not discharged to the local groundwater. So over to you, Mark, when you're ready.
Yep, sorry, cheers, James, thank you. So the construction timeline. Plan and approval was obtained in September 2019, and then we went through a construction period and actually opened the station in February 2021. So previous use of the land, as we said earlier, it was used for caravan storage and obviously agricultural land. So some of the challenges we faced was station entrance redesign, Japanese knotweed and stakeholder engagement. So I'll take you through some of these. So in March 2018, a planning application for the development was submitted. A detailed design commenced in June 2018 and commissioned by Transport for Wales. In August 2018, concerns were raised by NRW in relation to the flood consequence assessment. Subsequently, an alternative car park and access layout was developed to address NRW's concerns. This was in collaborative nature with our designer WSP and our construction contractor Alan Griffiths under an ECI. The layout of the proposed car park and access layout differs from the original proposal, and planning permission was granted on 25th of September 2019. The roundabout concept has been revised and replaced by a staggered junction, along with internal layout changes to the car park arrangement. These changes are necessary to ensure the car park is above the predicted 1 in 100-year climate change flood levels and to minimise third-party flooding impacts. And the platform drop-off and location of accessible parking bays remains the same. So part of the FCA was the requirement for flood attenuation. So you can see from this photo now, we've got our 2 main tanks and a diesel oil interceptor, with any surface water then being discharged through the head walls into the attenuation area and then into the ground below. And here's a diagram of the existing, showing overlay of the car park or the scheme. So we split that up into the junction realignment, the station access road, the platform, car park and bus route, and then the flood mitigation area. And then here is an action shot of when we were constructing it. I'd love to say that I've got up-to-date drone footage, but we've done some planting in April of the attenuation area and the soft landscaping, and we're not planning to do any more drone footage now until October at the end of the growing season. So yeah, they're quite old, some of these photos are. So here's the junction realignment. Then we've got the access road, we've got the platform, we got the car park and the bus route, and then we got the flood mitigation area. And here is a photo just before we were demobilising. So I think the station was open at that time and they were just finishing off the attenuation area with all of the seed matting and things. Now, James, you want to talk us through the Japanese knotweed, please?
Yeah, no problem. So as Mark briefly touched on, Japanese knotweed was a very big issue on Bow Street. There was over 5,000 meters cubed of Japanese knotweed contaminating the site. Japanese knotweed is essentially just a very invasive plant species that can tend to grow and break through the concrete and the structures we can build. So it was important that we removed it. And there's generally 2 different ways you can do this. You can either burn the knotweed itself, or you can dig the complete root of the knotweed out. So if you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, Mark, I'll talk a bit about the process we used. So here we are. Firstly, we had to identify all the Japanese knotweed that was on site, which was a lengthy process in itself. There's a lot of it spread throughout the site, and it's important that you get every piece of it, otherwise just a small piece can then spread like wildfire. The second step then was to remove the knotweed that we identified. This was done through a machine that we can't go into much detail, we've been told, but essentially it was just a machine that digged 10 feet below the knotweed to ensure that the roots had been completely removed. And then that was then compact and backfilled into a 13T excavator machine, which then burned the knotweed safely without contaminating other areas of the site. And then the burnt material turned into sort of a rubber-like texture that could then be used to respread throughout the site in topsoil, etc. So that's a brief rundown of how we got rid of the knotweed. We went with this option because it was a lot safer for the equipment nearby, as opposed to burning the knotweed itself. So yeah, if you want, I'll hand you back to Mark.
Okay, cheers, James. So stakeholder engagement, internal, external and impacting factors. So obviously there were significant issues with it being multi-funded through Welsh Government and DFT. We had a number of different briefings to both parties we had to give. Obviously the stakeholder engagement had to be managed with them and manage their expectations, especially with the DFT, with the close relationship with Network Rail and standard changes associated with the common safety method. We had standard changes regarding detailed design. So we had to continually engage with them to make sure that everybody was satisfied. Obviously, the interface with Network Rail infrastructure is predominantly difficult. Obviously, there are a lot of standards we had to comply with. We had a lot of approvals required, approval of designs, which we worked with our designer and with Network Rail to come up with a bit of a collaborative approach to the design approvals. We had the interface with the local authority and the MUTRA regarding highways and active travel route connectivity. So there was already an active travel route coming up to the boundary of the property or boundary of the project, which we then had to fully encapsulate and bring into our area. We then also done active travel route adjustments at the junction as well. where we engaged with the local highways and obviously the community councils to ensure that their expectations are fully catered for, and the approval of the construction was complete. Asset ownership. So when this project started, TFW was in its infancy. We have grown a lot as an organisation in the last 2 to 2.5 years and learned a great deal. We are now starting to take over assets as our own. So in previous projects, the asset would have been handed wholly over to Network Rail, whereas in this instance on Bow Street, the platform and platform equipment remains a Network Rail asset, operated by TFWRL as part of their lease agreement. But then the car park and the attenuation area is a TFW asset. So we've had quite a significant amount of engagement with our own asset management teams to try and get these assets handed over, the right support mechanisms in place for the future maintenance, and it's something we've learned a great deal on, and we'll be rolling out across our other projects. Similarly with the handover and acceptance, there's a very drawn out process for Network Rail for the handover and acceptance. We have tried to streamline things where we can and come up with our own procedures and policies of how things are handed over, how they're accepted, and how defects are rectified and snagging is completed. And yet with Brexit, I'd be foolish not to mention it. It did impact us towards the end of the project. When we were delivering towards the end of November, there were significant delays with certain items, with them being held up in customs, and it's something which we had on our risk register, but it's just something that we had, we should have monitored a little bit closely, but we still opened on time even with Brexit impacting us. And I'll hand over to Laurie now, and she'll talk about our community engagement.
Thanks, Mark. As mentioned, I'm Laurie Joyce, the Stakeholder Manager for Transport for Wales. I've been on the Bow Street project since April 2019. As this new station has been discussed in the local community since 2010, we were almost the new kids on the block. So we had to do a bit of engagement in terms of not only our role, but also our brand identity and so on. At the very beginning of the project, we did a lot of face-to-face meetings with key stakeholders, namely the local community, which was primarily a Welsh-speaking community. So we presented at their community council. We engaged with the local councillor, Ceredigion Council, and also Aberystwyth University, not just from a landowner's perspective, but because they were developing a new innovation campus down the road from Bow Street. So they were building around the same time as we were, and the idea of the campus was that it is a place for research students to do further agricultural research, so PhD level and above. So they were very supportive of the development and wanted to work very closely with us, because there were opportunities for connectivity from the Midlands to Mid Wales, and then the active travel routes. There's a very popular active travel route from the station up to the campus, a well-known cycle path or multi-use path. So they were very supportive. Nearer to the actual possession work, we did a letter drop. So we did a bilingual letter to the entire village, and we did that several times during the project to ensure everyone knew who was doing the work at what time, and that's pretty much standard practice that we've developed from Network Rail. We developed our road signage as well, because that was quite intrusive. In some ways, COVID helped with the road management because there was less traffic on the roads, but it was important to let our communities know what was happening. We also did local advertising in the press and Welsh specific advertising as well. They have Welsh publications in the area, so we fed information into those. We also had to adapt our approach on engagement throughout COVID, so we couldn't do any more face-to-face on-site meetings, so everything moved on to Teams. So we ensured that Ceredigion Council and some key stakeholders were involved in our monthly project meetings. We arranged specific meetings with the local councillor to keep him up to date. And in fact, COVID impacted us right until the opening. So what we did, which was a bit of a first for us, was a virtual opening, and we did a virtual tour via Teams. So that involved myself using a GoPro walking around the station, and we had ministerial presence at that. And looking forward, we are going to feature Bow Street in a BBC Wales documentary as well, to emphasise the importance of the station to the local community. And we receive ongoing feedback about the station through our Bow Street specific mailbox. So although the station is now live, engagement doesn't stop, which is really encouraging. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, cheers, Laurie. Right, I'll take you through now. So shout out if it works, please. This is our opening video, which shows you a great shots of the station. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we can see it. Is the
Okay.
sound?
Oh, I'll turn the sound on now. Sorry. Oh, there we go. So yeah, like I said earlier, one of the key challenges we had at Bow Street, due to the split asset arrangement, was the requirement to double up on practically everything. So here is our new power transformer that was put in for put in for the project. We then got a separate DNO for the platform, separate DNO for the car park, separate telecoms for the platform, and separate telecoms for the car park. So it's quite a lot of boxes around there, but in order for the asset management to be continued as it is, that is the only solution we had. Yeah, we've got some platform construction photos. So here's our public health points. We got our nice platform in the shelter in the middle. We've then got our emergency access egress routes off either side of the platforms, and then our lovely steps going down to them. Some more photos of platform construction as well. And one of the key things we've learned on Bow Street is around trying to standardize our construction. Obviously, being a young company, we're still trying to build our own brand and our branding mechanism. And yeah, it's caused some tension sometimes with our contractor, but we've worked collaboratively, found solutions to it. And yeah, we're hoping now we can roll out the brand into other stations. So every station should look predominantly the same. These are car park area with all our PRM compliant lighting, our bus stops, our ticket vending machines, and yeah, the bus shelter with it's got a real-time bus information screen, which then gives live passenger information then for connectivity to the wider bus route. Some more photos. So yeah, obviously these are the vents for the tanks underneath, and yeah, our attenuation area in the background, and here's our flood mitigation area. Oh, sorry, I'll go back one. I don't know, the photo's gone. Yeah, there's some photos missing off the side. I don't know where they are. So yeah, sorry about that. Right, any questions from anyone?
Well, thank you all. That's a really insightful presentation on the project from start to finish. I think it's great to hear about the assets that have gone into the station and platform, about the active travel, the local support, and actually the collaboration it takes for the project to progress. So I urge any of the people on the meeting today, please do feel free to ask any questions to our presenters. We do have one question that's jumped out and wanting to know a bit more about the role WSP played in the project. So I don't know if anyone could pick up on that point.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. So WSP were our principal contractor and designer, principal designer for this project. Heavily involved from the outline design right the way through then to the detailed design and the reversion from the roundabout solution to the final solution. So they've been supporting us greatly. Fair play. They've been a really good team.
Great. I don't know if I've only got Ash. So Ash, are you are you able to share your camera or come in at this point? Is that what you wanted to know? Not sure if I've got Ash involved. We've also got it's really a point from Stephen Blunt about the knotweed treatment. I know that you can't go into detail about the specifics that you used, but Stephen just raises a question maybe on an alternative technology. Stephen, are you with us? Maybe Stephen doesn't want to be identified either. But okay, that's just maybe a note on the side of that that we can share with you after the presentation. Mark, hi, you've got your hand up. Mark Adams.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. Very interesting presentation, Mark. I was interested in the change to the junction from the roundabout to the staggered junction. Clearly that solution is far better for active travel and for pedestrians. Was that change purely driven by the change to the drainage, or was there a feeling in the team that a staggered junction would be better anyway?
I'll try and comment, but I wasn't involved with the project at that time.
I might be able to help. You go ahead, Mark, and I'll add to it.
So I think it was, the main reason for the change was to do with the consequence assessment, but I do think that health and safety did get involved as well with how we operated around there. And I believe, Lodi, is that true?
Yeah, I think there was some engagement with other bodies, and it was to do with the risk of flooding, but also I think originally we were going for a roundabout access, and the local community certainly preferred a roundabout because I think it's a very linear village and the tendency is to speed up at either end. Because it's the main route to Aberystwyth and South Wales and so on. There's only one road, and they saw it as a way of slowing traffic down as well. So during the summer of 2019, we had to do more engagement with the community to get buy-in for a staggered junction instead, because I think at that stage their interest was more in the roundabout than the station, if I'm being honest. But we explained the difficulties around that. But we did a lot of engagement. We did a lot of engagement with the near neighbour as well. But it was primarily to do with flood mitigation, is my understanding, and our wider discussions with Natural Resources Wales and similar.
Yeah, Larry, this is Lee here from WSP. Yeah, you're right. The junction was primarily, the junction train change was driven by the flood, but it had other benefits as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cheers, Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. We've got another question from Richard Evans-Snarl from Welsh Government. What specification does the zebra crossing in the car park align with, as there are no beacons? Is somebody from the team able to answer that question?
I'm hoping Lee can answer that.
Now you know I'm here.
Sorry for dropping in, Lee.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. Yeah, it's basically, I might get the title of the document slightly wrong, but there is a design guidance for rail station car parks, and it follows the requirements in that. So it doesn't follow manual for streets or DMRB or anything like that. It's the rail. There's a rail guidance document for design of safe car parks.
Thank you. Richard, if you're online, does that answer your question, or is there anything else you'd like to add? Okay, we have a yes. That's great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? It's an ideal opportunity to ask any of the project team here. So please do put them into the chat box. I haven't got any further hands up or any other questions to the team. Mark, would you like to come back in? Sorry, Mike Edmonds, actually. Can I bring Mike Edmonds in?
Yes, very good presentation. Thank you. The question I've got is about the actual rail interface. You explained really well about the car park, the platform, the construction. But was there a lot of work required on the actual tracks and signalling? And if so, did that impact on the program?
Yeah, so we took the opportunity in Network Rail to do the track works early. So I think originally they were non-compliant, and then we had to apply for a derogation due to the gradient. And I took, well, topography of the area, basically Bow Street is in a dip. So the track rises up to Aberystwyth and rises up to Both. So the interface with Network Rail was important to get that track works done very early, so then it wouldn't impact our outline design or detail design for the platform works. And obviously we had to get early engagement with our construction contractor. So, you know, it was imperative that them track works were complete. We had a baseline to work off, and then we could carry on with the design for our platforms. Sorry, Mike, what was the second part of the question?
No, just, you know, obviously you've got to get you've got to get the track and the signaling complete.
Yeah.
Where you can open up. So it was just space, because it's sometimes people think, oh, I'll build a station and away we go, but you know, that's sometimes the complicated areas.
Yeah, so a number of signalling assessments were completed prior to the works or prior to the project, and there was no signalling per se or changes required. Obviously the Cambrian line uses an ETCS system, which is the European Traffic Control System, all digitized. There was an interface mined regarding a train stopping at the station and the activation of the Vale Rydal steam line. It came in a very late, I think it was in November, it was fully identified, and we worked very hard with Network Rail to identify the risk, come up with a solution, implement the solution. And yeah, that's there's been very little impact to their services based on this treadle being moved. So basically it was a strike-in treadle for the level crossing at Aberystwyth, and basically because the two level crossings for the steam railway and the main railway act as one big railway, there was an issue there, but you know, it was dealt with the team. I think it did, it caused a bit of panic when it came up so late, because bearing in mind we'd nearly finished construction, we were due to start operations in 3 months' time, and then we were running around trying to sort out this issue, but it was done and dusted and opened as planned.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
I just would like to ask a question as well. It's just probably just to help with my thinking, but it's about the water attenuation as well, and what considerations needed to be made following on from the work that you were doing with Natural Resource Wales and your community engagement.
Yeah, so Lowry, do you want to talk with the community engagement with the attenuation?
Yeah, so we primarily with that just had to speak to some targeted potentially impacted residents. The easiest way we found to do that was to go visit them. They were, I would say, relaxed about things. The only thing was there were, I think, 4 or 5 properties, and one of
I think Lowry's dropped off there. Right, well, I think my...
Oh, sorry,
what
I
she
was on
gonna say?
mute. I was talking to myself. I'm so sorry. I'll start again. I'm so sorry. I should be used to this by now. What we identified some properties that could potentially be impacted. It was 4 or 5 cottages that were about a mile away from the sort of the back of the station. And the easiest way we found to engage with them was to visit them and explain the intentions of the project and the low risk of flooding. Because of their proximity and where they live near an existing stream, they were quite aware of it and had some flood mitigation in place already. So the majority of them weren't interested in the politest sense. But one property was, we suspected, a holiday let. Therefore, we wrote to them and eventually they got in touch with us, which was great. And we worked alongside them to just put some further mitigation in. And it was, I would say it was fairly straightforward once we were able to get hold of the property owners. But again, because of their experience with flooding, they were fairly relaxed about it. And I think compared to some of our other developments, you know, the residential impact wasn't quite the same in that we didn't have, you know, multiple houses next to the station. We only had really one landowner. So it was fairly straightforward, like I said, once we got hold of them. So apologies again about the mute.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering the question. Is there any other further questions from the floor here to ask to our panel? I've still got your hand up, Mark Adams. Is that an old hand or is there something you'd like to come in?
It's a new hand. Basically, just like as we've got Lee on the call, just between Mark and Lee, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about the early engagement of the contractor, Alan Griffiths. In CEW, were very, very supportive of getting the whole team together early. And I just wondered if you could give us a couple of examples of how that helped with the project.
Mark, I don't know whether you you weren't on the project when the initial tendering started, so I can add something there if you want.
Yeah, if you could, please, Lee. Like I said, I can see what happens, but yeah, it's better for someone that was there.
Yeah, there was initial standard tender process. Well, I think it started with expressions of interest and capability statements from a bunch of, I'd say about 6 contractors. I sat in a panel with TFW to go through those expressions of interest, looking at the capabilities. We narrowed those down to a couple of selected tenders to go for a full price tender. WSP then worked with TFW to review those tenders, got it down to a preferred tenderer, then took that through, because there was a parallel then of, because we had the issue of going back to the drawing board on the general arrangement scheme, it was decided to progress and keep going with the actual main tender process and to go through a preferred tenderer and then repricing as we were in parallel redesigning the general arrangement. So there was an initial pricing done on the original layout that then got refined, working collaboratively between ourselves, TFW and Griffiths, working to refine the price, find efficiencies by getting the contractor on board during that redesign process. And then there was also a decision to split the works into 2 because of the certain issues on funding, working with DFT to maximise the opportunities of funding with them. So the platform, heavy engineering, ground improvement work specifically for the concrete platform is separated out, because that was probably the only element of the scheme that was unchanged by the flooding redesign. So that was separated out, and then there was some further refinement done of the general arrangement of the junction layouts and everything, working between the 3 parties to get that nailed down to a final price. So that, in summary, was how it worked. It actually, I think there was a lot of value got with the involvement with Griffiths and getting their sort of their knowledge of construction materials and practicalities, and it helped us develop the final design in that parallel process of finalizing the design and finalizing the tender. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, more or less. That's fine. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Super, that's great. We haven't got many more questions coming in. You know, this is a good opportunity if anyone does want to ask a question. I haven't got anything else. Is there anybody else that would like to ask our panelists any questions, our project team? It doesn't. Oh, hang on a moment. Okay, so we've got, are there any resources, please, that would show construction details or layout floor plans for the interchange, asking as an architectural student? Is that at all possible? I know what we're going to do is we're going to share the slides after today's event, and a case study will be written up on the Bow Street interchange as well as a part of Constructing Excellence Wales Exemplar programme. So I presume that's fine with you, Mark and team?
Yeah, if you drop me over the email address, and I can share with them some of the drawings then.
Thank you very much, Mark. So Ash, that was your question. I know you haven't, so if you can drop us your email after the event, that would be great. We'll pass it on to Mark. I've got Daniel Jones with a hand up. Daniel, I'd like to bring you in.
Hi, yeah, great presentation. Very interesting. Go through the journey from where you were back in 2010. Being a local boy in Aberystwyth, but living down in Cardiff now. I'm just interested to, as a summary or a bit of a conclusion of how successful the scheme has been since opening, launching, and are the numbers of travellers. I know there's an impact by COVID, but whether or not the numbers of travellers and the benefits to the town are being realised. Just be quite interested to understand that.
Yeah, so obviously we are capturing data through Rail Limited or TFW Rail Limited. Uptake has been slow. Obviously, we opened up while we were still in a lockdown. Obviously, now we're getting released from our lockdowns and summer is around the corner. And yeah, I'm hoping that there's going to be a significant increase now in the next 6 weeks with usage of people travelling into Aberystwyth, because having travelled to Aberystwyth while supporting this project, parking is very difficult there. And yeah, you know, there's a service now to get there within 5-10 minutes. It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we have got, you know, we're collecting some qualitative data from TFWRL about passenger numbers and things like that. And yeah, we can share something in a few months, I would suppose.
Right, okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Super. Mark, I've still got your hand up, but I presume that is from before. Mark Adams? Yeah, I presume that's from before. Well, last chance really, just to ask any further questions. Please do quickly raise a hand or write in the chat. What we'll do, like I said, I reiterated, the case study will be written up about the Bow Street interchange, and we will share with the attendees the slides of today's presentation. So if you still do want to ask any questions, do engage with us. If there's anyone else interested in becoming an exemplar, do get in touch as well with myself or Sue and the team in Constructing Excellence Wales. And I'll probably leave it there, really. It's been a real pleasure to learn about the project, the programme, and a really insightful presentation. And so I'd like to thank you all really for giving that to us today. So many thanks. And I just wish you all a very enjoyable afternoon. So thank you all, and look forward to hearing from you soon.